What's up, everyone? My name is Mistic, and welcome to Mistic Reacts. Today we are reacting to another video by TierZoo, and this time it features Casually Explained, who I have reacted to a few videos of. And today's video is, should dinosaurs be unbanned? Maybe the ones like the dodo. But I personally would not like to see the T-Rex unbanned and back on the servers. So, a pterodactyl would be cool, as, you know, a bat and all. It would be cool to see them around. But let's get into it. Make sure to check out him down below. And yeah.
Sponsored by Skillshare.
Okay, let's start. Inkily Flores. And this is why I do not want them back. I did not expect him to go through the
controversial
horn.
balance updates the devs have ever introduced was patch 1.3.1. The update which banned and nerfed the vast majority of dinosaurs, marine reptiles, and pterosaurs. And so it should come as no surprise that one of the requests that the devs get the most is to reintroduce dinosaurs back into the game. The devs have never unbanned any classes before.
Yeah.
But what would the meta look like if the devs actually obliged?
The meta will be very crazy.
Again? Well, to answer that question, we first need to understand why dinosaurs were banned in the first place. And believe it or not, I was actually given the opportunity to ask one of the devs this very question.
Ooh.
So a lot of people have been wondering, why were the dinosaurs banned?
I get this question a lot because the dinosaur class was one of the most popular in the history of the game, and we definitely got a lot of pushback when you released the first extinction pack. But to be honest, the meta was just getting stale, especially with players opting to play larger and larger land carnivores like the T-Rex. Like one balance update, we tried to buff herbivores by putting 2 additional horns on the Uniceratops, but of course the T-Rex players just spec'd into higher attack. Then one time we even tried to nerf the rage ability of the T-Rex players by increasing the frequency they want to engage in sexual behavior, but then players thought it would be funny to shorten their arms. So eventually we figured it's not worth dealing with all these complications and we should just go for the hard reset, lower the oxygen levels to limit the size wars of different classes, and encourage more nuanced skill trees. And while we are seriously considering a dinosaur remaster due to popular demand, to be honest, even now, if you look at most character models, they're just shrunk down, reskinned dinosaurs we put fur on so you couldn't tell.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to comment on this matter. Okay, so what would it look like if dinosaurs were unbanned? First, let's talk about dinosaurs in general. The dinosaur build's main advantage is its massive size. At fully grown, the only things that could take it down were other giant dinosaurs and potentially pack hunting builds. While size is an advantage on defense, it can be a challenge for overall survivability. Dinosaurs require a massive amount of food, potentially more than the current game could provide.
Absolutely.
And so if the devs were to unban dinosaurs, they'd likely also need to buff the spawn rates of pretty much everything. Your average dinosaur build also tends to be pretty modest when it comes to speed and intelligence, having speed comparable to an elephant and intelligence comparable to crocodiles. This means that most of the current top tiers will outspeed and outsmart them on a regular basis. But this isn't the case for all dinosaurs, so let's get into the specifics now. Let's start with the herbivores. So I don't think hadrosaurs would be very viable at all, seeing as they have no good defensive abilities to protect themselves with. Their best trait is that they can communicate effectively and keep watch over each other. But the best hunters today rely on stealth, a strategy specifically meant to get around this problem. Hadrosaurs would be great at spotting tall carnivore players from far away, but not stealthy builds that stay low to the ground and move through the bush. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's no problem, the herbivores could just outrun them. But large herbivores had much lower mobility than today's top predator builds. They'd be most comparable to an elephant, like I said before. But where elephants lack in mobility, they make up for with intelligence. You can't say the same for dinosaurs. But not all herbivores would be in such a bad position. Hadrosaurs lack any form of weaponry, but other herbivores are much more well-armed. Triceratops is perhaps the most well-known armed herbivore, and it's easy to see why. At full speed, a Triceratops could one-shot even the tankiest of opponents. But with that said, the carnivore player base has gotten much better at dealing with front-facing weapons like horns and tusks. So Triceratops may find itself struggling to fend off attacks that come from behind or come from multiple angles. Getting behind an opponent has become a staple trick of every carnivore's playbook, especially for canine and feline builds. Sauropods were at an interesting place in the meta back during the Mesozoic, and would definitely still be if they were brought back today. Their late game stats were simply impossible to beat
like the
one-on-one.
giraffe.
No other land build has ever achieved even close to the same base stat total. Even the top predators of the time barely stood a chance, even in teams. But they only reach this potential in the late game and have relatively few defensive options during early and mid game, aside from just relying on high-level teammates. This means that their teammates need to be able to stop an attack before it's too late. Because of their extreme height, predators would just about never be able to sneak up on a sauropod clan in an open field. But approaching using stealth isn't the only way to catch a vigilant opponent off guard.
Yeah.
Hiding in trees is another option, one that's employed by some of the most powerful builds of present day. Big cats tend to target the neck of their opponents, and, well, it would be pretty hard to miss.
Yeah.
Even the top tier jaguar probably couldn't one-shot a high-level sauropod, but all of the arboreal big cats would definitely be a problem for juveniles. Potentially so problematic that not enough of them would be able to reach the late game to defend the lower level players. It's hard to say. Overall, they could be completely viable or completely helpless. Not much in between.
I would not choose
In my
that
opinion,
one.
the herbivore builds best suited to survive in the current meta would be the ones with tail weapons, specifically stegosaurs and ankylosaurs. As previously mentioned, the top predator builds tend to attack from behind, avoiding a
We
face-to-face
need
confrontation
cooler
and staying out
tails
of range
in
of
this
being hit by
meta.
counterattacks
It's
with
all
horns,
kinda
tusks, and
boring.
bites. This strategy works great against the tanky herbivore classes of present day, but an attack from behind would be an awful idea against a build with a club or thagomizer. In addition, the armor on their back would make it much harder for assassin builds like big cats to land their critical strikes. Of all of the herbivores, I find these to be the most likely to become top tier if they were unbanned.
And then
Now
with the
onto the carnivores.
coolest.
So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think large tyrannosaurs would fare well in the current meta.
Yep.
Tyrannosaurs are min-maxed to optimize for damage, which was great
And I
when
do
their
not
goal was to
want
be able
to
to bring down
encounter
tanks
one.
with HP levels as high as the dinosaurs. The only build of present day that this would be important to have against would be the elephant. And while that is important, having only one good matchup is not a top tier strategy. All elephant players would need to do to counter this specific tactic is spec into slightly higher mobility, since the T-Rex's top speed is extremely low compared to builds of present day. Smaller
33
tyrannosaurs
miles.
like Albertosaurus and Daspletosaurus would still be viable though, since they haven't sacrificed as much mobility as the T-Rex has. Mobility really is the name of the game for predators right now. And it's the reason that I'd put dromaeosaurs like Velociraptor and Deinonychus as the best contenders for being too OP for the current meta. And not just because of their excellent mobility, but also because they really wouldn't need to adjust much from their playstyle in the Cretaceous. Raptor builds in the Cretaceous preyed mostly on small animals like prehistoric mammals, and occasionally banded together to take down midweight and heavyweight builds. This niche is still very much available today, and raptors would have little trouble in combat versus builds like possums, raccoons, and birds. This is the same role that the fox and coyote occupy right now. So the question then becomes, could raptors compete with them? In one-on-one combat, I do think raptors have the edge. While raptors do have lower HP than any canine, they also have much more burst damage potential. Canines use the persistence hunting strategy and need to land several attacks in order to bring down a target. Raptors, on the other hand, deal much higher damage because of their sickle claw that can potentially one-shot an enemy. Both employ team strats, and both have high mobility and intelligence. So all else being equal, the ability for raptors to out-damage the canines would, in my opinion, win them the day. So overall, if individual dinosaur builds were
We
unbanned,
didn't talk
the
about
stegosaurs,
the
ankylosaurs, and dromaeosaurs would most
any of the
likely be top
flying
tier,
ones.
while the others might end up struggling. Dinosaur players would need to learn a lot of new abilities to be able to contend with how advanced the meta is, especially when it comes to how OP humans are. Luckily, if you're looking to quickly and easily learn new skills, Skillshare has you covered. Skillshare is an online learning
It
community
is
with over
a
20,000
few
classes
years
in design,
old,
business,
so I don't know if it's
act now for this.
still active, but there you go. This has not changed my opinion on if dinosaurs should be unbanned. I still think they probably shouldn't be, but I will make an exception for flying dinosaurs or the dodo, because they are the coolest. And flying ones are just, bats and all. Well, Make sure to check out him down below. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you would like to see more from me, check out my other videos, my Patreon or other channels. And until next time, bye bye!